Internet, it's your soon-to-be favorite Dice Dragon Paige. I'm going to tell you about one of the craziest session ones I've ever been a part of. So we were playing through the starter kit adventure, The Lost Mines of Phandelver. So minor spoilers ahead. The Dungeon Master, it stands to be noted, is also pretty new to the game. That being said, he ran this adventure the best way he knows how, and tries to run his games in a way that strives to make sure that everyone's having fun, even if it's not 100% by the book all the time. We decided that we had all found the job individually by posting on Fantasy LinkedIn, and had each taken it for our own reasons. The Artificer was looking to make some money for new inventions. The Rogue was on the run from a man who had killed his entire clan of elves, and was training and gathering money to one day go back and defeat him. And he was very open about his murder-revenge plot, and my wide-eyed cleric, who was on a mission from her goddess to bring hope and healing to the people, was very on board with this idea, since, in her words, sometimes to help someone heal their heart, you gotta bonk some bad guys. So we arrived at the inevitable ambush point, and immediately started looking around for signs of what had happened and of our employer. That's, of course, when we were attacked. The first fight went pretty well, considering it was originally balanced for a party of 4, and the DM didn't know how or to reduce the challenge for a party of 3. So it was 4 goblins versus 3 party members at level 1. We killed 2 of them, and the other 2 scurried off into the woods. And this is where things get a little bit hinky. We followed them back to the cave, after my cleric tied up a cart with a sign that said, "Please don't steal from us." And the Dungeon Master, trying to think logically, added the goblins that had run away to the ambush at the mouth of the cave. So that's another 3v4 fight, and I was down spell slots. That didn't end up mattering super a lot, though, because before I even got to go, one of the goblins had knocked me unconscious. Next unconscious was our rogue, and as all of this was happening, we kind of discussed, what do we do here? Do we go back to the last save point? Do we start the level over? Do we just start the game over? But the Artificer ran away and managed to escape the fight somehow with a single hit point. And the Dungeon Master decided to rule that we would continue the game, and that the goblins had stabilized the 2 of us that had gone unconscious and brought us to Clarg, the bugbear boss, for further questioning. He later said that if the Artificer had gone unconscious as well, he probably would have let us, restart the level and try to run it a little bit differently so that we don't inevitably die. But felt like starting over when the Artificer had managed to escape would have devalued his efforts and his role-playing there. So after I'd all made it back to the cart, the spotlight was on Valkyrie and Adatian. They had taken all of our stuff and piled it in a corner, so we had no weapons, no armor, and I'm sitting here the whole time just scrambling through my spell list looking for anything that doesn't have a material component. And so I told the bugbear, I'm a very good healer, and I'm trying to get him to, give me my spellcasting stuff back, and so he brought in a goblin that we'd wounded in the fight earlier, who we later found out was named Tabi. And I used my singular ASMR, lay on hands hit point that I could restore, and it was just touch, and that's all it needed. And so I used it to heal the goblin. And Clark seemed interested, but demanded more healing and refused to give me my stuff. And I had nothing else that I could really, do for healing at that point. So I'm scrambling and I'm thinking, okay, what else do I have? And while he's sitting here raging and being angry and he's distracted, I cast light on the armor of the goblin, since he was still, close enough for me to touch. And I started, going off, oh, he's been chosen by my goddess, that must mean he's, special, and she has plans for him, and the goblin, Tabi, was, super interested in being special, as anybody would be, but especially as somebody who's, working under a bugbear who's just you can go die for my cause. And the bugbear was not happy. He's where is this, person? How are they casting spells? I don't see them. He's, swinging his sword around. He's, pointing his sword at me. And I dropped the light because I was okay, maybe it's not working. And when the light dropped, Tabi seemed, super disappointed, oh, maybe I haven't been chosen. And this whole time, the rogue has slowly been untying his ropes. And so he used the distraction to run to the pile of stuff, grab the short sword before anybody noticed, and then ran over, cut me loose. And we rolled initiative, and we both happened to get, pretty high rolls. And so I disengaged and I ran out the door. So there's the bugbear standing next to me. I disengage and I run towards the door, and Tavi is still, like, by the doorway. So I'm going to have to run past them and take an attack of opportunity, which I do not have the hit points or the armor class for at this point. And so as I pass them, I just whisper, "The goddess believes in you." He got this, like, look in his eyes, and he, like, drew his sword. He didn't try to hit me. It's like, okay, cool, I've made it out of here, and that's going to be the end of it. I use my last spell slot to cast Cure Wounds on myself so that I'm not at 1 hit point, and I'm running the wrong direction. And I ran towards the bridge, and the rogue had found the stairs and went around the back, so he's already on the bottom floor. So I'm trapped on the bridge with goblins on either side. And so I just say a quick prayer, and I jumped. And immediately went unconscious. And Tavi is the first one to my body, and they stabilize me, like, before I'm even rolling death saves. And so the rogue, unencumbered by any armor or equipment, does a ranger roll and just, like, fireman carries me out of the cave. And we're being closely trailed by Tavi. And that's the story of how in the first session of a game, the healer went unconscious twice, the rogue had his stuff stolen, and I converted a goblin to my religion. So I hope you enjoyed that story. Subscribe if you are looking for more fun and interesting and wacky D&D stories.